segments, chaotic neutral is one of the most misunderstood alignments, though not necessarily for the reasons you might think. Many gamers seem to interpret it as the alignment for the characters that can do whatever they want. They're free to be as impulsive and annoying as they feel like. They're free to help or hinder whoever their heart desires, and it's often closely associated with being a rogue. The thing is, they're not entirely wrong. There is a great deal of freedom when it comes to unprincipled neutral, and it is a good alignment for rogues with complex personalities. These gamers have the unprincipled part down. Those of this alignment don't believe in any causes beyond their own freedom. Where people tend to get confused is with the difference between good and evil. They tend to believe that good is defined by the pursuit of life and justice, while evil is defined in the pursuit of death and malice. In this way, a middle ground can be found in the pursuit of one's own desires over all else. This concept is wrong. Remember, we changed these terms to make it easier to discern the difference between good and evil. The neutral part of this alignment means we're dealing with a person who is neither fully selfless or selfish. They're complex, or maybe confused. We're dealing with individuals who are very clear about how they view the world. It's full of shades of gray with very few absolutes. Where people tend to get confused is with how these characters view themselves. Whether a character is selfless or selfish is a matter of motivation, and chaotic neutral characters aren't clear on where they stand on that. To illustrate what I mean, why don't we take a look at this segment's examples. The expected entry has pursued his personal freedom to the end of the world and back again. Our first example is both a hero and a right bastard. Our first example is Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack takes the romantic notion of a pirate and runs with it. He drinks heavily, he sleeps with many wenches, he swashbuckles with the best of them, and he schemes many confusing, impulse-ridden, some might even say schemey schemes. He's chaotic because he is a man defined by rebellion. No rules, laws, or facts will tame the captain of the Black Pearl. He is a man of the listless sea, and he will sail them long after the day he dies. What makes Jack neutral is that in his dedication to remaining unprincipled, Jack has become confused as to his motivation behind many of the things that he does. Certainly he wants his freedom above all else. This goal guides a great deal of his actions. Yet, whenever the chance to be a good, decent human being by doing a solid for others comes about, he tends to take it, and this confuses him. Jack, much like those who find themselves most closely associated with him, finds himself constantly debating whether he's a good man or not. This moral ambiguity is what makes Jack a compelling character, and unprincipled neutral. Our next example is similar in this way, but different in so many others. Assassin, damned man, champion of the homeless. Our next example is Al Simmons, also known as Spawn. Al Simmons is literally a tortured soul, powered by the sins of men. Given the second chance to see his beloved wife, and possibly seek vengeance against the person who killed him, he willingly sold his soul. Spawn is the definition of a tainted hero. He's stained by his own sins and personal desires, but he has taken it upon himself to care for the dregs of Rat City. He is unprincipled because the harsh fate he has been dealt has left him cynical and disillusioned. He is literally caught between the forces of good and evil, hated by one and rebellious to the other. What makes Spawn neutral is not his place between heaven or hell, nor his championship of purgatory, but his own ambiguity towards his motivations. Al Simmons lived a life of legalized murder and sold his soul to hell in order to see his wife again. He was, and to an extent continues, to live his life driven by his own desires. Yet, he identifies with homeless people and fights to protect them with no promise of gain. Much like Jack Sparrow, Spawn is confused about what ultimately motivates him. Unlike Jack, he's much more hateful and violent about it. What we can learn from these two men is that a lot of gamers are selling this alignment short. Chaotic neutral is much more compelling than just a rogue that doesn't follow anyone's rules. It's for characters that honestly can't tell anymore whether they care for others or not. They may swing back and forth as they search for the answer to that question, or they may be limited as to who they are selfless towards or what they're selfish about. Deadpool is evil because he serves only his desires, and Han Solo is good because he can't stop himself from caring about others. But that's enough about the chaotic spectrum. Why don't we shift gears and talk about the lawful side of the chart?
And what better way to start talking about principles than with lawful good?